I never told my son-in-law's family that I owned 2 properties outright, that I had rental income coming in every single month, that I had a pension most people would retire early for, that my savings account had more zeros than they could imagine. When they invited me to our first family lunch, I decided to run a test, a simple test. I dressed in my oldest, most worn-out clothes. I carried a faded canvas purse with a broken zipper. I drove my 15-year-old car that rattled when it hit 40 miles per hour. And I let them believe exactly what they wanted to believe. That I was poor, that I was struggling, that I was the embarrassing side of the family. But the moment I walked through that restaurant door and saw their faces, I knew I had made the right decision. What happened that afternoon devastated my son-in-law and his entire family in a way they never imagined. It exposed them, it shattered their perfect image, and it changed my daughter's life forever. And trust me, they deserved every single second of it. Let me explain how I got there. Let me tell you the whole story. Because this isn't just about money, this is about respect. This is about dignity. This is about how people show you who they really are when they think you have nothing to offer them. Let me tell you who I really am. But first, if you are enjoying this story, please make sure to subscribe, like and share this video, as your support is the only encouragement I need to keep bringing you these wonderful stories. Now back to my story. My daughter Emma, at 28 years old, never knew the full truth about her mother. To her, I was just the woman who lived simply, the woman who clipped coupons from the Sunday paper, the woman who wore the same winter coat for 10 years until the lining started to tear, the woman who drove an old sedan that made embarrassing noises, the woman who shopped at discount stores and bought day-old bread because it was 50% off. Just another ordinary woman scraping by, making ends meet, nothing special. And I never corrected her. I never told her that I owned my house outright. Completely paid off, not a single mortgage payment in over 20 years. I never mentioned the second property across town, the duplex I'd bought as an investment in 2011, the one that brought in $2,500 every single month like clockwork. I never explained that my pension from 33 years of administrative work was more than comfortable, more than enough, more than most people see in their entire working lives. I never showed her my savings account, the one with 6 figures, the one I'd built slowly, carefully, deliberately over decades of living below my means. Why would I tell her? Money was never something I needed to hang on the wall like a trophy. I didn't need a luxury car to prove my worth. I didn't need designer clothes to feel valuable. I didn't need a big house in an expensive neighborhood to know I had succeeded. I grew up in a different era, an era where dignity was carried within, where silence was worth more than hollow words, where showing off was considered crass and tasteless. My mother taught me that true wealth whispers, that real power doesn't announce itself, that the people who talk the most about money usually have the least of it. So I guarded my truth. I protected my privacy. I lived my life on my own terms. I lived in the same modest 3-bedroom house for 32 years, the house my late husband and I bought when Emma was just a baby, the house where we raised her, where we celebrated every birthday and holiday, where we built a life filled with love instead of luxury. After he passed away 12 years ago, I stayed. Why move? It was paid off. It was comfortable. It was home. I wore the same clothes until they wore out. I drove the same car until the mechanic told me it was a miracle it still ran. I bought generic brands at the grocery store. I cooked at home 6 nights a week. I saved everything. I invested everything. And I became wealthy in silence. Not wealthy in the flashy, obvious way. Wealthy in the quiet, secure way. The way that lets you sleep peacefully at night. The way that means you never worry about bills or emergencies or retirement. The way that gives you freedom. Because true power doesn't shout. True power observes. True power waits. And I was observing closely when Emma called me that Tuesday afternoon in late September. The phone rang while I was pulling weeds in my backyard. I wiped the dirt off my hands and answered. "Mom." Emma's voice sounded strange, tight, nervous, like when she was a teenager and had crashed the car and had to tell me. "Hi, sweetheart. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to ask you something." I waited. I've learned over the years that silence is often the best response. People fill silence with truth. "David's family wants to meet you," she said finally. "His mother has been asking. Well, more like insisting. They want to have lunch this Saturday. At that new restaurant downtown, the Riverside, the fancy one." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't joy. It was anxiety. It was stress. "Okay," I said slowly. "That sounds nice. I'd love to meet them properly." I'd met David briefly at the engagement party 6 months ago. A quick handshake, a polite hello, nothing more. He seemed nice enough. Polite, well-dressed. He worked as a civil engineer for a large firm. Emma had met him through mutual friends 2 years ago, but I hadn't met his family. His parents had been traveling, Emma said. They lived on the west side of the city, the expensive side. The side with gated communities and country clubs and tennis courts. "There's something I need to tell you first," Emma said, her voice dropping lower. "Here it comes," I thought. "What is it?" She hesitated. I haven't really told them much about you, about your situation." "My situation," I repeated carefully. "About where you live, about your work, about how you live." I said nothing. I waited. "I told them you worked in administration, which is true. I told them you live alone, also true. I told them you're simple, that you don't really have much, that you live modestly." There it was, that word, simple. As if my entire life, my entire existence, my entire value as a human being could be reduced to that one miserable, dismissive adjective, as if I were a problem she needed to apologize for in advance. A source of potential embarrassment, something to be explained away, minimized, managed. I felt something cold settle in my chest, not anger yet, something else. Disappointment maybe, or perhaps just clarity. "I see," I said quietly. "It's just that David's family they're very..." She searched for the right word. "They're very focused on success, on achievement, on status. His mother worked in investment banking before she retired. His father is a corporate lawyer. His sister is getting her MBA from an expensive private university. They're all very impressive." "And you thought I wouldn't be impressive enough," I finished for her. "No, Mom, that's not..." She stopped herself. "I just didn't want them to judge you. I didn't want them to look down on you." But by telling them I was poor, you guaranteed they would look down on me, I thought. You set me up to be judged before I even walked through the door, but I didn't say that, not yet. Instead, I took a deep breath and made a decision. "Okay, Emma, I'll be there. Saturday at 1 o'clock? "Yes, 1 o'clock at the Riverside." She paused. "And Mom, could you maybe dress nice? Like, wear something a little nicer than usual?" There was the kicker, the cherry on top, the final confirmation of what I already suspected. My own daughter was embarrassed by me. She told her future in-laws I was poor, simple, not quite good enough, and now she wanted me to dress up so I wouldn't embarrass her further. "I'll wear something appropriate," I said evenly. "Thank you," she said, relief flooding her voice. "Thank you so much, Mom. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart." I hung up the phone and stood in my backyard, still holding my gardening gloves, looking at my house, my paid-off, fully owned house. I thought about the duplex I owned across town. I thought about the bank statements I received every month showing my pension deposits, my rental income, my investment dividends. I thought about the comfortable retirement I'd built for myself through decades of hard work, careful planning, and disciplined saving. And I thought about my daughter, who had no idea about any of it, who assumed I was struggling, who was ashamed of her own mother. And that's when I decided. If Emma thought I was poor, if David's family was coming ready to judge me, ready to look down on me, ready to measure my worth by my clothes and my car and my zip code, then I would give them exactly what they expected to see. I would dress like someone barely getting by, someone who shopped at thrift stores, someone forgettable and dismissible, someone they could pity and condescend to. I wanted to see it. I needed to see it. I wanted to see their true faces when they thought I had nothing. I wanted to see how they treated someone they considered beneath them. I wanted to see if they had even an ounce of basic human decency, or if they were exactly the kind of people I suspected they were. The kind of people who measure others by their bank accounts. The kind of people who rank human beings like items on a balance sheet. The kind of people who smile to your face while calculating your net worth and deciding if you're worthy of respect. I'd met people like that before. In my 33 years working in administration at a large regional company, I'd met plenty of them. The executives who didn't learn my name because I was just an admin assistant. The managers who spoke over me in meetings. The clients who looked through me like I was invisible. Until they needed something. Until they made a mistake and needed me to fix it. Until they realized that the woman they had dismissed actually ran the entire operation, kept track of every detail, knew where every file was, remembered every deadline. I'd learned a long time ago that the people who underestimate you are giving you a gift. They're showing you who they are, and they're giving you power because they don't see you coming. My instinct told me David's family was exactly that type, and my instinct never fails. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, perfect weather for what I had planned. I woke up early, made myself coffee, and sat at my kitchen table planning my outfit like a general planning a battle strategy. I went to my closet and pushed past the decent clothes, the nice blouses I wore to church, the clean slacks I wore when I volunteered at the library, the respectable dress I'd worn to Emma's college graduation. No, those wouldn't work. I needed something that would scream struggling, something that would confirm every assumption Emma had fed them. I found it in the back, a shapeless beige dress I'd bought at a clearance sale probably 15 years ago. I'd worn it maybe twice, decided it was unflattering and forgotten about it. It was faded from too many washes. The hem was slightly uneven. There was a small stain near the waist that had never quite come out. Perfect. I paired it with old flat shoes, the ones with scuffed toes and worn heels. The ones I wore for gardening. No jewelry except my plain gold wedding band. The one my husband gave me 40 years ago. That stayed on. Everything else came off. No earrings, no necklace, no watch, nothing that suggested I could afford anything extra. I found my oldest purse in the back of the closet, a faded canvas tote bag I'd gotten free at some event years ago. It had a broken zipper and a small stain on one side. I transferred my wallet, my phone, and my keys into it. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, worn down, forgettable. The kind of woman you'd pass on the street without a second glance. The kind of woman people would assume was struggling to make ends meet, working some low-wage job, living paycheck to paycheck. It was perfect. But I wasn't done yet. I pulled my hair back into a messy, careless ponytail. No styling, no product, just a basic elastic band. I skipped makeup entirely. Let them see every wrinkle, every age spot, every sign of my 62 years. I looked at myself one more time. I looked poor. I looked defeated. I looked like someone who'd been beaten down by life. I looked like exactly what they expected to see. I smiled at my reflection, not a happy smile, a cold smile, the smile of someone who knows something no one else knows. I got into my car. My 15-year-old sedan with the dent in the passenger door and the faded paint and the engine that made concerning noises. The car I kept meaning to replace but never bothered because it still ran, and I didn't care what people thought. Today, I cared what they thought. I wanted them to think exactly what Emma had told them to think. I drove across the city from the east side to the downtown area, from my transitional neighborhood to the fancy restaurant district. The drive took 30 minutes to think, to prepare, to steel myself for what was coming. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me hoped Emma had exaggerated. Part of me hoped David's family would be kind, welcoming, warm, that they'd look past the old clothes and see me, really see me. But a larger part of me, the part that had worked for 33 years in corporate environments, the part that had watched people show their true colors over and over again, that part knew better. That part knew exactly what was waiting for me. I parked in the public lot 2 blocks away. I wasn't paying for valet parking. That would be out of character. I walked slowly to the restaurant, carrying my worn tote bag, my old shoes clicking unevenly on the sidewalk. The riverside was exactly the kind of place I expected. Glass doors, a uniformed doorman, soft lighting visible through the windows, well-dressed people entering and exiting, the kind of place where a single lunch could cost more than some people's weekly grocery budget. I took a deep breath, pulled open the door, and stepped inside. The interior was all polished wood and soft lighting and quiet elegance. A hostess in a black dress stood at a podium. "Welcome to the Riverside," she said with a professional smile. Her eyes flickered over my appearance. The smile dimmed slightly. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting the Westfield party," I said. She checked her list. "Ah, yes, they're already seated. Follow me, please." She led me through the restaurant, past tables of well-dressed diners, past businessmen in suits and women in designer dresses. I felt eyes on me. I felt the judgment. A woman dressed like me didn't belong in a place like this. Good. That was exactly the point. We reached a large table near the windows, and there they were. Emma stood up first. She was wearing a beautiful emerald-colored dress that I'd never seen before. Fitted, elegant, expensive. Her hair was styled in perfect waves. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she belonged in a fashion magazine. She looked nothing like the daughter I'd raised, the one who'd worn jeans and hoodies through college, the one who'd helped me plant vegetables in the backyard and hadn't cared if her nails got dirty. When she saw me, her smile froze, just for a second. But I caught it. Her eyes went wide. They dropped to my dress, my shoes, my bag. I saw the moment of panic, the flash of embarrassment. "Mom," she said, her voice slightly strained. "You made it." She hugged me, quick, perfunctory, like she wanted to get it over with. Beside her stood David, my son-in-law-to-be. Tall, handsome, maybe 30 years old. He wore crisp dark slacks and a white button-down shirt. Expensive watch on his wrist. His hair was perfectly styled. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, extending his hand. "Good to see you again." His handshake was firm, professional. His eyes were guarded. And then I saw them, David's family, already seated at the table like royalty waiting for a servant to be presented. The mother sat at the head of the table, Patricia Westfield, mid-50s, though she'd probably spent thousands fighting it. Blonde hair with expensive highlights pulled back in an elegant twist. She wore a cream-colored blazer with gold buttons that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Pearls at her throat, pearls at her ears, pearls on her wrist. She had that polished, preserved look of women who lunch at country clubs and get weekly spa treatments. She looked up as I approached. I watched her eyes travel over me from head to toe. I watched her take in every detail, the faded dress, the old shoes, the worn bag. I watched her expression change. Surprise first, then disappointment, then something else. something that looked almost like disgust quickly covered by a polite mask. "Mrs. Harrison," she said, standing and extending her hand. Her voice was smooth, cultured, carefully modulated. "How lovely to finally meet you." Her tone said the exact opposite of her words. Her handshake was cold, brief, barely any pressure. The kind of handshake you give to someone you don't want to touch, but have to for politeness. "Please call me Susan," I said softly, making my voice a little smaller, a little more uncertain. "Of course, Susan," she said, the name sounding wrong in her mouth, like she was tasting something unpleasant. Beside Patricia sat her husband, Richard Westfield, late 50s, gray hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit jacket even though this was supposed to be a casual lunch, the kind of man who probably wore a suit to the grocery store. He had a gold watch on his wrist that caught the light. Expensive, showy. He stood briefly, shook my hand with a firm, business-like grip meant to establish dominance, then immediately sat back down. "Charmed," he said in a voice that suggested he was anything but. And then there was the sister, Michelle, 24, 25 maybe, beautiful in that Instagram-perfect way, long dark hair in beach waves, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head like a headband even though we were indoors. She wore a black top that was probably labeled casual, but had cost more than my car payment used to be back when I had a car payment. She barely looked up from her phone. "Hey," she said, not making eye contact. "Michelle, put that away," Patricia said sharply. "We have a guest." Michelle sighed dramatically but pocketed her phone. Then she looked at me for the first time. Her eyes went to my dress, then my shoes, then my bag. She looked at her mother. They exchanged a glance that lasted maybe 2 seconds but communicated volumes. I saw it all. The judgment, the silent communication, the confirmation of whatever Emma had told them. This is her? This is the mother? Yes, this is her. Oh. "Please sit," Patricia said, gesturing to the empty chair at the end of the table. The farthest seat from her, the seat with the worst view, the seat that marked me as the least important person here. I moved toward it. No one helped me with my chair. Richard didn't stand. David didn't move. Emma was already sitting next to David. I pulled out my own chair and sat down, placing my worn tote bag on the floor beside me. "I'm so glad you could join us," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Emma has told us so much about you." I'll bet she has, I thought. "All good things." "I hope," I said with a small smile. "Of course," Patricia replied smoothly. "She said you're a very independent woman, that you've managed on your own for quite some time." The word managed hung in the air like a judgment. "I'd do my best," I replied, keeping my voice soft and humble. A waiter appeared, young, professional, carrying a small stand. "May I take your coats?" he asked. Everyone began removing their outer layers. Patricia slipped off a cashmere wrap that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. Richard removed his suit jacket, revealing a crisp white shirt. Emma took off a stylish blazer I'd never seen before. I started to take off my thin cardigan, the one I'd worn because it had a small hole in the elbow. Patricia glanced at it. "Oh," she said, her voice carrying just a hint of concern. "You didn't bring a proper coat? It's quite chilly today. The weather report said it might rain." "This is fine," I replied. "I don't feel the cold much." "Really?" Her eyebrows rose slightly. "At your age, you should really bundle up properly. We wouldn't want you catching something. The flu is going around, you know." "At your age?" As if I were ancient and frail. "I'll be careful," I said quietly. Richard nodded. "Good idea. Medical bills can be quite expensive if you don't have good insurance." The implication was clear. You probably don't have good insurance. Michelle was watching me again. She leaned slightly toward her mother and whispered something. Patricia's lips tightened. "Michelle," Patricia said in a low, warning tone. But I'd heard it. Just barely. Is that what she wore? 3 words, quiet but deliberate. Patricia cleared her throat. Michelle, don't be rude. But she was smiling, just slightly. That indulgent smile of a mother who doesn't really disapprove. The waiter took our coats and disappeared. I sat there in my thin cardigan with the hole in the elbow, feeling every eye on me. Menus arrived. Heavy, leather-bound, expensive. I opened mine. The prices weren't listed. That kind of restaurant. The kind where, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Patricia opened hers with the casual confidence of someone who'd been to 1,000 restaurants like this. She barely glanced at the options. The salmon here is absolutely divine, she said to no one in particular. $48, but worth every penny. They fly it in fresh from Norway. The quality is exceptional. She looked at me pointedly. Of course. Quality always costs a bit more. But when you know, you know. I nodded, looking down at my menu, pretending to study the options. Richard added, "The steak is excellent as well. $62, but it's prime cut, aged 30 days. Melts in your mouth." I said nothing. "Take your time, Susan," Patricia said sweetly. "If the prices are a bit uncomfortable for you, they do have some more reasonable options. The pasta is quite nice, only $22. Very filling." Emma was looking at her plate, her face red. David was staring out the window. "That sounds perfect," I said softly. "The pasta would be lovely." "Excellent choice," Patricia said with satisfaction. "Simple, but satisfying. Sometimes simple is best, don't you think?" There was that word again. Simple. When the waiter came, Patricia didn't even ask what I wanted. "She'll have the pasta primavera," Patricia said, pointing to me, "with water to drink. Still, not sparkling." She ordered for me, like I was a child or a burden. The waiter wrote it down and moved on to take everyone else's order. They ordered freely, the expensive salmon, the premium steak, appetizers, wine by the glass, $60 bottles. I watched the numbers add up in my head. This lunch was going to cost them hundreds of dollars, and they'd ordered me the cheapest thing on the menu without even asking. While we waited for food, Patricia folded her hands on the table and turned her full attention to me. "So, Susan," she said with false brightness, "tell us about yourself. We'd love to know more about Emma's background." Emma's background. Not me as a person, my function as Emma's mother. "What would you like to know?" I asked. "Well, Emma mentioned you worked in administration." Patricia's voice lilted up at the end, making it a question, as if she couldn't quite believe it. "Yes," I replied. "I worked in an office for 33 years, did bookkeeping, managed schedules, handled correspondence. Simple work, but honest work." "How practical," Patricia said slowly, as if searching for the right word. "Administration. That's like secretarial work, isn't it?" "Similar," I agreed. Michelle spoke up. "Our family is mostly professionals. Dad's a corporate lawyer. Mom worked in investment banking before she retired early. I'm finishing my MBA at Morrison School of Business. David has his master's in civil engineering." She looked at me with barely concealed judgment. "Did you go to college?" The question was designed to embarrass. They already knew the answer. "No," I said simply. "I started working right after high school. My family couldn't afford college." Patricia made a sympathetic sound. "Oh, those were different times, weren't they? Not everyone had the same opportunities back then. Education wasn't as accessible." She paused. "But you did what you could with what you had. That's admirable. In its own way." In its own way, meaning not really admirable, just pitiful. "I was fortunate to have work," I said quietly, playing my role perfectly. Richard nodded. "Honest work is important. Every job has dignity, no matter how modest." Modest? Another judgment word. "We've always believed in education. Patricia continued. We made sure our children had the best: private schools, tutors, study abroad programs. We spared no expense because education is an investment in the future. She looked at me meaningfully. I'm sure you did what you could for Emma, within your means. Within my means. Translation, which wasn't much. Emma was dying inside. I could see it in her face. But she said nothing. David was examining his water glass like it held the secrets of the universe, and I just smiled, nodded, played the role. The appetizers arrived, small plates of expensive-looking food arranged like art. Patricia took a delicate bite of something involving goat cheese and arugula. So, Susan, she said casually, where do you live? Emma mentioned you're still on the east side? Yes, I replied. Same house for 32 years. Patricia's eyebrows rose. 32 years? My goodness, that's quite a long time in one place. It's home, I said simply. The east side has changed quite a bit over the years, hasn't it? Patricia's voice was careful. Diplomatic. Richard wasn't as diplomatic. Property values there haven't kept pace with the rest of the city. The area has become more transitional. Transitional? I asked innocently. Declining, Michelle said bluntly, looking up from her phone again. That's what he means. It's not a great area anymore. Michelle, Patricia said, but without real reproach. Richard continued. We're helping David and Emma look for a place on the west side, near us. The neighborhood is much better. Better schools for when they have children. Better property values, better neighbors, more appropriate for young professionals building their careers. He looked at me. I'm sure you understand. Translation, your neighborhood isn't good enough for our son. Of course, I said softly. You want the best for them? Exactly, Patricia said with satisfaction. The west side is where the city is really growing. New developments, good investments. We want to make sure they have every advantage. She paused, taking a sip of her wine. I don't think your area would really be suitable for them long term. There it was, out loud. My home, my neighborhood, dismissed as unsuitable. Emma looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. The main course arrived. Enormous plates with relatively small portions arranged artistically. Patricia cut into her salmon with precise movements. This cost $82, she said conversationally. But when you know quality, you know it's worth paying for. Now you simply can't put a price on excellence. She looked at me. I'm sure your pasta is quite good too. Sometimes simpler food is just as satisfying, isn't it? I nodded, taking a bite. It was delicious, actually, but I wasn't going to tell her that. Patricia turned her attention back to Emma. Speaking of quality, we need to discuss the wedding venue seriously. We've been putting it off, but it's time to make decisions. Emma nodded. We were thinking maybe the park gardens? They have a nice outdoor space. The park gardens? Patricia interrupted, her nose wrinkling slightly. Darling, no. That's where people have birthday parties and retirement celebrations. For a wedding, you need something with real presence, real elegance. She turned to Richard. Show them the brochure. Richard pulled out his phone, scrolled, then turned it toward Emma and David. The Riverside Club, Patricia announced. The same owners as this restaurant. It's where all the premier families host their weddings. She paused dramatically. It's $15,000 just for the venue rental. That doesn't include catering, flowers, music, or anything else. But it makes a statement. It shows that this is a family event of significance. Emma's face went pale. $15,000? Don't worry about it, Patricia said, waving her hand dismissively. We'll handle it. Then she turned to me. Her expression shifted to something that looked almost like pity, but felt like condescension. Of course, we understand that not every family can contribute equally to a wedding. We're not expecting, well, we know that different families have different means. Different circumstances. The silence stretched out. We just want Emma and David to have the best, Patricia continued, and we're fortunate to be in a position where we can provide that for them. She looked at me directly. If you'd like to contribute something, perhaps you could handle a smaller detail. The programs, maybe, or the thank you cards. Something more within your budget. Programs, thank you cards, the scraps, the leftover tasks no one else wanted. That's very thoughtful of you, I said quietly. I'll see what I can manage. Wonderful, Patricia said, satisfied. Every little bit helps, doesn't it? It's the thought that counts. But her tone made it clear that the thought wasn't worth much if it wasn't backed by significant money. Richard nodded approvingly. We've always believed in being generous with our children. We gave David and Michelle everything they needed growing up. The best schools, the best opportunities. We're simply continuing that tradition. When Melissa, that's David's older sister, she's in California right now. When she got married, we spared no expense, Patricia added. It was a beautiful event. 200 guests, orchestra, 5-course dinner. It was featured in the regional wedding magazine. She smiled at Emma. We want the same for you, darling. You're family now. Then she looked at me. The message was clear. Emma is family now. She's ours, not yours. Dessert arrived. Patricia ordered the most expensive option for everyone, except me. Just coffee for Susan, she told the waiter without asking me. I'm sure she's quite full from her pasta. The waiter nodded and left. I said nothing. Patricia leaned back in her chair, her posture radiating satisfaction. She'd orchestrated this entire lunch perfectly, every detail designed to show me my place. Susan, she said, her voice taking on a softer, more intimate tone, I want to talk to you about something important. Family to family. I looked at her, waiting. David is our youngest, our baby. We've always been very close to him, very involved in his life. We want only the best for him. She paused. And Emma is wonderful, truly. We're so happy David found her. She's smart, she's kind, she's hardworking. She's everything we could have hoped for in a daughter-in-law. But I could hear the but coming. But, Patricia continued, as parents, we naturally want to ensure that our children have stability, security, a strong foundation. She reached across the table and patted Emma's hand. You're family now. Emma, you're ours, and we take care of our own. Then she looked at me again. Susan, I hope you won't take this the wrong way. We have so much respect for what you've accomplished, raising Emma alone after your husband passed, working all those years, providing for her as best you could. That takes real strength. Here it comes. But you're at a different stage of life now, living alone, on a fixed income, I assume. It must be difficult sometimes, making ends meet, worrying about bills, health expenses, unexpected costs. She leaned forward slightly. David must worry about you. It's natural for a son-in-law to feel responsible for his wife's mother, to feel that he should help, that he should support you. She paused, letting her words sink in. And that's beautiful. That's what family does. But we also don't want that worry to become a burden on their marriage. We don't want David feeling like he needs to solve problems that perhaps have been accumulating for years. She was calling me a burden, out loud, at a lunch table. Emma opened her mouth. Patricia, I don't think... Patricia held up her hand. Let me finish, dear. This is important. She turned back to me, her expression morphing into something that was supposed to look kind but felt like pity. Richard and I have been discussing this, and we'd like to make you an offer, a gesture of family support. Oh, here we go. We could provide you with a small monthly allowance, she said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. Nothing extravagant, of course. We can't work miracles, but perhaps $500 a month? Maybe even $700 if needed. something to help with your expenses, to take the pressure off, to give you a bit of breathing room." She smiled warmly. "We'd be happy to do this for you, to help you maintain your independence, to let you live more comfortably in your later years. $500 a month. To buy off the poor mother-in-law." Richard nodded. "We think it's the right thing to do. We're in a fortunate position. We should share that fortune with family." Patricia continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "Of course, we would only ask one small thing in return. Nothing unreasonable. Here it comes. The real price. We'd simply ask that you respect David and Emma's space. Let them build their life together without too much interference. Give them room to grow as a couple, to establish their own family unit." She looked me directly in the eyes. "No unexpected visits, no constant phone calls, no financial requests that might put pressure on them. Just appropriate distance, healthy boundaries. You understand, don't you?" I understood perfectly. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my daughter's life, to not be an embarrassment at family gatherings, to not remind their son that his wife came from lesser circumstances, to vanish quietly into my declining neighborhood and leave their perfect family picture intact. Emma's face was bright red. Tears were starting to form in her eyes. "Patricia, that's not necessary. My mom doesn't need—" "Emma, sweetheart, I'm talking to your mother right now," Patricia interrupted smoothly. "This is between adults. You understand." David finally spoke. His voice was tight. "Mom, this isn't appropriate." "David, please," Patricia said firmly. "We're trying to help, trying to do something kind for Susan. Let the women handle this." She turned back to me, expectant, waiting for me to fall over myself with gratitude, waiting for me to accept their charity, waiting for me to agree to become invisible. The entire table was silent. Everyone was looking at me. Patricia with satisfaction and false kindness, Richard with smug confidence, Michelle with barely concealed amusement, Emma with horror and shame, David with helpless discomfort. And I just sat there, looking at them, feeling every insult from the past hour collect like ammunition in my chest, feeling the rage that had been building, cold and controlled, finally reaching its peak. I picked up my napkin, wiped my lips slowly, carefully. Put the napkin back on the table. And when I spoke, my voice was completely different, no longer soft, no longer timid, no longer uncertain, firm, clear, cold as winter ice. "That's a very interesting offer, Patricia." Patricia smiled, thinking she'd won. "I'm so glad you see it that way, Susan. We really do want to help." "I have some questions first," I interrupted, "just to make sure I understand the terms of your generosity." Her smile flickered slightly. "Of course. Ask anything." I leaned forward slightly, my posture changing. My shoulders straightened, my chin lifted. $500 a month, maybe $700, for me to disappear from my daughter's life, to not embarrass you at family events, to stay in my declining neighborhood and leave you all alone. Patricia's face went pale. "I wouldn't put it quite like that." "That's exactly how you put it." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Let's not pretend otherwise you want to buy me off, pay me to vanish, make the poor mother-in-law go away." "Susan!" Richard started. I held up my hand. The gesture was commanding, not asking, telling. "Let me finish, because I've been sitting here for over an hour now, listening, observing, taking notes on every single word you've said." I looked at Patricia directly. "You said my area is transitional, declining, not suitable for young professionals. You said I should contribute something small to the wedding, something within my budget. You ordered the cheapest item on the menu for me without asking what I wanted. You didn't let me choose my own food." I turned to Richard. "You implied I don't have good insurance. You suggested my property has lost value. You called my life's work modest and simple as if those were insults. I looked at Michelle. You asked if this is what I wore. You judged my clothes before you even knew my name. You couldn't be bothered to look up from your phone when I arrived. I turned back to Patricia. And you, Patricia, you said Emma married up, that she doesn't have to worry anymore because you've got her now. As if I hadn't taken care of my daughter for 28 years, as if I hadn't raised her alone after my husband died, as if everything I did was somehow not enough. The table was completely silent. Everyone had stopped moving. Patricia opened her mouth, but no words came out. Let me tell you something, I continued, my voice dropping lower but gaining intensity. You've spent this entire lunch measuring me, calculating my worth, deciding if I was good enough to be part of your family, and you decided I wasn't. I reached down and picked up my worn canvas tote bag, placed it on the table. But you made one critical mistake. I reached into the bag. You assume that what you see is all there is. You assume that old clothes mean poverty, that a simple life means failure, that someone who doesn't show off doesn't have anything to show. I pulled out my phone, my simple, basic phone. This is my banking app, I said, opening it. I'm going to show you something. Patricia leaned back slightly, uncertain now. I turned my phone screen toward her. This is my checking account. That number right there? That's $43,216. That's my emergency fund. The money I keep liquid in case something unexpected happens. Patricia's eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly. I swiped to another screen. This is my savings account. That says $218,403. That's from 33 years of working, saving, investing, and not wasting money on expensive wine at lunch to impress people I don't respect. Richard leaned forward, squinting at the screen. That has to be real, I finished. It's real. You can see the bank logo right there. Chase Bank. Account number partially visible. Today's date. I put my phone down and reached back into my bag. But let me show you something even more interesting. I pulled out a folder, a simple manila folder I'd brought specifically for this moment. I opened it and pulled out the first document. This, I said, placing it on the table in front of Patricia, is the deed to my house, the house I've lived in for 32 years, paid off completely in 2003. Current market value, according to the most recent assessment, is $423,000. I slid it across the white tablecloth. Patricia stared at it like it might bite her. But that's not all, I continued. I pulled out another document. This is the deed to my second property, a duplex on Riverside Avenue. I bought it in 2011 as an investment property. I rent out both units. Combined rent, $2,500 a month, every single month for the past 13 years. I placed that document on top of the first one. That's $300,000 in rental income over 13 years. Before expenses, of course, but still, not bad for someone from a declining neighborhood. Emma was staring at me with her mouth open, actual shock on her face. David had gone completely white. Michelle had put down her phone and was gaping. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. Richard was shaking his head slowly, as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. I pulled out one more paper. And this, I said, placing it on the table with quiet satisfaction, is my pension statement. 33 years with Mackenzie Regional Corporation. I retired 3 years ago at 59. My pension, $3,200 a month for life, plus full health insurance, plus annual cost of living adjustments. I sat back in my chair. So let me do the math for you since you seem so interested in numbers. Rental income, $2,500 a month. Pension, $3,200 a month. That's $5,700 a month in guaranteed income. Before we even talk about investment dividends, interest from savings, or Social Security when I start taking it in a few years. I looked at each of them in turn. My total net worth, including both properties, savings, investment accounts, and retirement funds, is approximately $970,000, just under $1 million. Not quite wealthy by your standards, perhaps, but comfortable, very comfortable. The silence was absolute, like someone had sucked all the air out of the restaurant. Patricia's face had gone from white to red. Her hands were trembling slightly on the table. "So, your offer of $500 a month," I continued, "to make my life easier, to help me with my expenses." I smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Patricia, I spend more than that on my lawn service." Richard found his voice. It came out hoarse. "If you had all this money, why do you live like what?" I asked sharply. "Like someone poor? Like someone who doesn't have anything? Like someone you could look down on?" He closed his mouth. "I'll tell you exactly why," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "Because I wanted to see who you really were." I leaned forward. "I wanted to know if you would treat me with respect based on my humanity, or if you only respect what people own, what people wear, what neighborhood they live in." I looked directly at Patricia. "Emma called me last Tuesday. She was nervous, anxious. She told me you wanted to meet me. And she told me that she'd already explained to you that I was simple, that I didn't have much, that I lived modestly. She was embarrassed of me before you even met me." Emma's tears were flowing now. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Not yet," I said gently but firmly. "Let me finish." I turned back to Patricia. "So I made a decision. If Emma had already painted me as poor, if you were already expecting someone to pity and condescend to, then I would give you exactly that. I would dress in my worst clothes. I would drive my oldest car. I would play the part of the struggling mother-in-law." I paused, because I wanted to see your true colors. I wanted to see how you treat people when you think they have nothing, when you think they can't do anything for you, when you think you're better than them. Patricia's voice came out as barely a whisper. "You deceived us. You lied." "I didn't lie," I corrected coldly. "I never once lied to you. I said I worked in administration. True, I said I lived on the east side. True, I said I managed. True, everything I said was factually accurate." I stood up slowly, deliberately. "I simply didn't advertise my success. I didn't wave my bank statements in your face. I didn't brag about my properties or my pension or my investments, because I don't need to. I don't measure my worth by my net worth." I looked down at all of them. "And that's the difference between you and me." Patricia found some of her composure. She stood as well, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. "This doesn't change anything. You still came here deliberately trying to make us look bad. You manipulated this entire situation." "I manipulated nothing," I said firmly. "I gave you a test, a simple test of character, and you failed spectacularly." "A test?" Richard stood now, too, his voice rising. What gave me the right?" I cut him off. "I'm Emma's mother. I have every right to know what kind of people she's marrying into, what kind of family is going to be part of her life, and now I know." I picked up my documents, carefully placing them back in my folder. "You are the kind of people who judge others by their appearance, who measure human worth by bank account balances, who offer charity to feel superior, who smile while you insult, who pretend to be kind while you're actually being cruel." Patricia's hands were shaking. "You have no right to judge us." "You don't know us." "I know exactly who you are," I interrupted. "You showed me. For over an hour, you showed me exactly who you are." I looked at Michelle. "You couldn't even pretend to be polite. You judged me the second I walked in, and you never reconsidered." I looked at Richard. "You measured my property value, my insurance, my worth as a human being in dollars and cents." I looked at Patricia. "And you were the worst. You wrapped your cruelty in false kindness. You offered charity while delivering insults. You tried to buy me off and make it sound like generosity. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. You said Emma married up. Do you understand what that means? You told my daughter to her face that she was less than, that she came from less than, that she should be grateful your son chose her despite her inferior background. Emma was sobbing now, full broken sobs. David had his head in his hands. And the most insulting part, I continued, you did all of this while talking about family, about taking care of your own, about being generous. I shook my head. You don't know the first thing about family. Real family doesn't rank members by income. Real family doesn't offer conditional support. Real family doesn't measure love in dollars. I reached into my bag one final time. Oh, I said casually, as if I'd just remembered something. There's one more thing I should mention. Patricia looked wary now, uncertain. You mentioned that apartment David and Emma have been applying for? The one on the west side that you said was so much more suitable than my declining neighborhood? Patricia nodded slowly. Yes, the rental on Maple Street. We helped them with the application. It's a lovely building. The 3-bedroom with the renovated kitchen? I asked. The one with the balcony overlooking the park? Yes, she said, confusion clear in her voice. I pulled out a set of keys. 2 keys on a simple ring. I placed them on the table with a soft click. I own that building. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear someone's phone vibrating 3 tables away. You what? Patricia's voice was barely audible. I own it, I repeated clearly. The building at 847 Maple Street, the 4-unit apartment complex. I purchased it 6 years ago. It's one of my investment properties. I pointed to the keys. Those are the keys to Unit 2B, the apartment David and Emma applied for 2 weeks ago. Richard's face had gone purple. That's impossible. The landlord is listed as Harrison Property Management. That's me, I said simply. Harrison is my married name, Susan Harrison. I registered the LLC under Harrison Property Management. I'm the owner, I'm the landlord, I'm the property manager. Emma had stopped crying. She was just staring at me with absolute shock. David looked like he might faint. Patricia grabbed the edge of the table for support. So when you said, I continued, looking directly at Patricia, that my neighborhood was declining and not suitable for young professionals, you were talking about the area where I own 3 properties, where I collect rent from 11 different families, where I've built a substantial portion of my investment portfolio. I let that sink in for a moment. The apartment building on Maple Street, I bought it for $420,000 in 2018. Current value, approximately $670,000. That's a $250,000 appreciation in 6 years. Not bad for a declining area, wouldn't you say? Richard sat down heavily. He looked like he'd been punched. And when you said you wanted David and Emma to live near you in a better neighborhood, I smiled. They already applied to live in my property. I was reviewing their application when Emma called to invite me to this lunch. Patricia found her voice. It was shaking. You knew they applied to your building. Of course I knew, I said. I review every application personally. I saw David and Emma Westfield applying for Unit 2B. I saw that David listed his parents as references. I saw your names, Patricia and Richard Westfield, with your West Side address. I paused, and I was going to approve them immediately. I was going to give them a family discount, 20% below market rate. I was going to waive the security deposit. I was going to make sure they had the best unit in the building. Past tense, was going to. Patricia caught it. Was, I confirmed. Before this lunch, I was planning to help them, to give them a head start in their new married life, to make things easier for my daughter and her husband. I picked up the keys. But after today, after watching how you treat people you think are beneath you, after listening to you offer me $500 to disappear from my own daughter's life, I put the keys back in my bag. They can rent from me at full market rate, like any other tenant, $1,700 a month, first month, last month, and security deposit due at signing, standard lease terms, no family discount. Patricia's face crumpled. You can't. That's vindictive. It's business, I corrected. You said it yourself. You're in a fortunate position. You can afford it. $1,700 a month should be nothing for a family like yours. Richard slammed his hand on the table. Glasses rattled. Nearby diners looked over. This is outrageous. We were trying to be kind. We were trying to help you. Help me? My voice rose slightly. You called my home unsuitable. You said my life's work was modest and simple. You judged my clothes, my neighborhood, my career, my worth as a human being. You offered me money to stay away from my own daughter. I stepped closer to the table, leaning down slightly. That's not help. That's cruelty dressed up as charity. That's judgment wrapped in fake kindness. That's you establishing a hierarchy with yourselves at the top and me at the bottom. Patricia was crying now, real tears, mascara starting to run. Please, we were just trying to, we didn't know. Exactly, I cut her off. You didn't know. You assumed, you judged, you dismissed, and you did it all with smiles and polite words. I straightened up. Let me tell you something that clearly no one has ever taught you. Money doesn't buy class. It doesn't buy decency. It doesn't buy the ability to treat people with basic human respect. I looked at Patricia directly. You have money, perhaps quite a lot. You have a nice house, expensive clothes, a successful career. But you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Richard stood up again, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Now listen here. No, I said firmly. You listen, because I'm not done. I turned to address the whole table. You spent an hour and a half condescending to me, pitying me, dismissing me, measuring my worth, and finding it wanting. And you enjoyed it. I saw it in your faces, the satisfaction, the superiority, the pleasure you took in being better than someone else. Michelle had tears in her eyes now, too. She looked young suddenly, less smug, more human. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm really sorry. We shouldn't have. You're right, I agreed. You shouldn't have, but you did, because that's who you are when you think no one important is watching. I looked at Emma, my daughter, still crying, broken, ashamed. Emma, I want you to remember this moment. Remember how they treated someone they thought was poor. Someone they thought couldn't do anything for them. Someone they thought they were better than. Emma nodded, unable to speak. Because this is who they are, I continued gently. When the masks come off, when the politeness fades, when they think they're safe to show their true selves. I turned to David, and you. You sat there and said nothing. You let them humiliate your mother-in-law for 90 minutes. You didn't defend me. You didn't stop them. You didn't even try. David's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I was a coward. Yes, I agreed simply. You were. But now you have a choice. You can continue being a coward, letting your parents control your life and your marriage with their money and their judgments. Or you can be the man Emma deserves. I picked up my worn tote bag. The apartment is still available. If you want it, you can apply like any other tenant. But there will be no special treatment, no family discount, no forgiveness for late rent. You'll be regular tenants, nothing more. Patricia found some steel in her spine. She wiped her eyes and stood straighter. We'll pay for their apartment ourselves, she said coldly. Somewhere else, somewhere better. We don't need your charity. I smiled. It's not charity, it's business, but you're welcome to find somewhere else. I'm sure there are plenty of overpriced apartments in the city that would love to have you." I pulled out my wallet, my real wallet, the leather one I normally carried, not the beat-up one I'd brought for show. I took out a $100 bill and placed it on the table. "That's for my pasta and coffee and for the entertainment of watching you all show your true colors." Patricia stared at the bill like it was a snake. "Keep the change," I said. "Consider it my contribution to your little power lunch." I turned to leave. Patricia's voice stopped me. "Wait, please, we can fix this. We can start over. Let's forget this happened. We got off on the wrong foot. We can be civil. For Emma and David's sake." I turned back to face her. "No, Patricia, we can't start over, because now I know who you are, and you know who I am. And that truth can't be erased with apologies or second chances." I looked at all of them one final time. "You treated me like I was nothing because you thought I had nothing. You judged my worth by my clothes and my zip code. You measured my value in dollars and found it lacking." I paused. "But the truth is, I have something you will never have, no matter how much money you accumulate." "What's that?" Michelle asked softly. "Dignity," I said simply. "Real dignity. The kind that doesn't depend on designer labels or expensive restaurants or looking down on others. The kind that comes from knowing who you are and not apologizing for it. The kind that treats everyone with respect because that's what decent people do." I headed for the exit. Behind me, I heard Patricia's voice. Breaking. Desperate. "Emma is our daughter-in-law. David is our son. We'll still be family. You can't just walk away." I stopped at the edge of the dining room and turned back one more time. "You're right," I called back. "We'll still technically be family. We'll see each other at holidays and birthdays and eventually at your grandchildren's events." I paused, "But every single time you see me, every time you smile and pretend to be kind, you'll remember this day. You'll remember how you treated me when you thought I was poor. You'll remember the judgments, the insults, the condescension." I looked directly at Patricia, and you'll know that I remember too, and that I'll never forget, and neither will Emma. With that, I walked out of the Riverside restaurant with my head high, my worn tote bag over my shoulder, my old shoes clicking on the polished floor. The last thing I heard was Emma's voice, breaking through sobs. "Mom, wait!" But I kept walking. The autumn air hit my face as I stepped outside. Cool, clean, fresh. I took a deep breath and felt something release in my chest. Something that had been tight and coiled for the entire lunch. I walked the 2 blocks to where I'd parked my car. My old, reliable, embarrassing car that had served me well for 15 years. I got in, closed the door, and sat in silence for a moment. My phone started ringing before I even started the engine. Emma. I let it ring. I wasn't ready yet. It rang again. David this time. I let it ring. Again. Emma. I turned off the ringer and drove home. The drive back to the east side to my declining neighborhood took 35 minutes. 35 minutes to think, to process, to feel everything I'd been holding back during that lunch. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was tired. Tired of people like Patricia and Richard. Tired of their judgments and their assumptions and their desperate need to rank everyone they met on some invisible scale of worth. But I was also proud. Proud that I'd stood up for myself. Proud that I'd exposed them. Proud that I'd shown Emma the truth about the family she was marrying into. I pulled into my driveway. My modest, comfortable, paid-off house looked welcoming in the afternoon light. I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, and sat in my living room. My simple living room with its comfortable furniture and bare walls and small television, and I felt at peace. My phone started vibrating on the coffee table. I'd forgotten to turn it back on. 7 missed calls from Emma. 3 from David, 2 from a number I didn't recognize, probably Patricia, and 12 text messages. I sipped my tea and opened them. Emma. 1:47 p.m. Mom, please answer. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Emma, 1:49 p.m. Please call me. Please, I need to talk to you. Emma, 1:52 p.m. I didn't know. I never knew any of this. Why didn't you tell me? Emma, 2:03 p.m. David and I left the restaurant. His parents are furious. I'm crying in the car. Please call me. Emma, 2:15 p.m. Mom, I'm coming over. I need to see you. David, 2:18 p.m. Mrs. Harrison, I apologize deeply. I should have said something. I should have stopped them. I was wrong. Unknown number, 2:21 p.m. This is Patricia Westfield. We need to talk. Call me immediately. Emma, 2:24 p.m. I'm at your door. Please let me in. I looked up. Sure enough, I heard a car door slam outside. A moment later, the doorbell rang. I opened it. Emma stood on my doorstep. Her perfect makeup was ruined. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her elegant dress was wrinkled from the car ride. She looked at me and burst into fresh tears. Mom, she sobbed. Mom, I'm so sorry. I stepped aside. Come in. She came in and immediately threw her arms around me, crying into my shoulder like she used to when she was a little girl and something had hurt her feelings at school. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed. I can't believe I let them. I can't believe I told them you were. Shh, I said gently, holding her. It's okay. Just breathe. We stood like that for several minutes, just holding each other, mother and daughter. Finally, she pulled back and looked at me, really looked at me. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. About the properties, the pension, the savings, everything. Why did you let me think you were struggling? I led her to the couch. We sat down together. Because I wanted you to be independent, I said simply. I wanted you to build your own life, your own career, your own success. I didn't want you depending on me financially. I didn't want you waiting for an inheritance or expecting me to bail you out of problems. I took her hand. I wanted you to know what it feels like to work hard, to struggle a little, to appreciate what you earn, because that builds character in ways money never can. Emma nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. But you let me think. I was worried about you. I thought you were barely making it. I thought I needed to protect you. From what? I asked gently. From them, she whispered. From David's family, from their judgment, from their cruelty, I supplied. She nodded, starting to cry again. Emma, listen to me. I took both her hands. You can't protect people from who they really are. Patricia and Richard showed me exactly who they are today, and I'm grateful for it. How can you be grateful? Emma asked. They were horrible. They said terrible things. They treated you like someone poor, I finished. Like someone beneath them. Like someone whose only value was measured in dollars. I squeezed her hands, and now I know. Now I know exactly what kind of people they are, what kind of family you're marrying into, and so do you. Emma was quiet for a long moment. I hate them, she said finally. I hate how they made you feel, how they talked about you. Her voice broke. How they said I married up, as if you weren't good enough, as if you hadn't given me everything. Do you hate David? I asked quietly. She hesitated. No, I'm angry at him. I'm disappointed. He should have said something. He should have defended you, but I don't hate him. Good, I said. Because he was in an impossible position, caught between his parents and his future mother-in-law. He made the wrong choice today. But people can learn from wrong choices. Emma looked at me. Are you really not going to give us the family discount on the apartment? I smiled slightly. That depends. On what? On whether David apologizes, really apologizes. Not because you tell him to, but because he understands what he did wrong. He will, Emma said firmly. He's horrified. He kept saying he was a coward in the car. He was, I agreed, but cowards can become brave if they choose to. We sat in silence for a moment. Mom, Emma said softly. Yes? I'm proud of you. The way you handled them, the way you spoke to them, the way you didn't let them make you feel small. She paused. You were magnificent. I smiled. I learned a long time ago that true power doesn't shout. It observes, and when the time is right, it speaks. Will you forgive them? Emma asked. Eventually? I thought about that carefully. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Emma, and it doesn't mean allowing the same behavior to continue. I might forgive them someday if they show real change, if they start seeing people as people instead of bank account balances. But until then? I looked at her directly. I'll be polite, distant. I'll come to family events because I love you, but I won't pretend today didn't happen, and I won't let them treat me or anyone else that way again. Emma nodded. That's fair. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Patricia, 3:02 p.m. Susan, please. We need to talk about this rationally. Let's meet privately. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I showed Emma the message. She thinks there was a misunderstanding, I said dryly. There wasn't, Emma said firmly. She meant every word. So did Richard. I saw their faces. I heard their tone. Yes, I agreed. They did mean it. And now they're trying to walk it back because they realized who I actually am. I put my phone down. I'm not meeting with her privately. I'm not giving her the chance to spin this or justify it or make excuses. What's done is done. Emma stayed for another 2 hours. We talked. Really talked. About everything. About my work history, my investments, my plans for retirement. About her fears, her embarrassment, her relationship with David. Are you going to break up with him? I asked at one point. She shook her head. No, I love him, but things are going to change. What do you mean? We're setting boundaries, Emma said firmly, with his parents. No more comments about money, no more comparisons, no more ranking people by their net worth. And if they can't respect those boundaries, then we'll have to distance ourselves. That takes courage, I said. I learned from the best, she replied, squeezing my hand. 3 days passed before David came to see me. I was in my backyard pruning roses when I heard the doorbell. I wiped my hands on my gardening apron and went to answer it. David stood on my porch. He looked tired. His eyes were red-rimmed. He wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, the most casual I'd ever seen him. Mrs. Harrison, he said quietly, may I come in? Please, I need to talk to you. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked into my living room and looked around, really looked for the first time. It's modest, he said softly, but it's peaceful, comfortable. It feels like a home. It is, I agreed. He turned to face me, took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry for what happened at that lunch, for what my parents said, for what they did, and most of all, for what I didn't do. I waited. Let him continue. I sat there and let them disrespect you, humiliate you, judge you, offer you money like you were some kind of charity case, and I said nothing. I did nothing. His voice cracked. I was weak. I was a coward. I was so worried about keeping the peace, about not causing drama, that I forgot the most important thing, standing up for what's right, standing up for the woman who raised the person I love. He sat down heavily on my couch. I grew up with their judgments, their measuring of people, their constant talk about success and status and who's doing well and who's struggling. I thought it was normal. I thought that's just how people talked about the world. He looked up at me. But watching you walk out of that restaurant, watching my mother realize who you really were, and watching her world collapse, I saw something I'd never seen before. What was that? I asked. Real dignity, he said simply. Real power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and not apologizing for it. He paused. My parents have spent their whole lives building walls around themselves with money and status. They use wealth like armor, and anyone who doesn't have the same armor they see as weak, as less than. And you? I asked. Do you see people that way? I did, he admitted. Or at least I didn't question it. But I'm questioning it now. Emma and I have been talking for 3 days straight. About values, about what we want our marriage to look like, about what kind of people we want to be. He stood up. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to measure people by their bank accounts. I don't want my future children growing up thinking that money equals worth. Then don't be, I said simply. Can you forgive me? He asked. Not for them. For me. For sitting there like a coward while they tore you down. I studied him for a long moment. David, forgiveness isn't something you get just by asking. It's something you earn by changing, by showing through actions over time that you learned something. He nodded. I understand. What can I do? Be the man Emma deserves, I said. Stand up to your parents when they're wrong. Set boundaries. Build your own life. Separate from their influence. Don't let their money control your decisions. I will, he promised. I walked to my kitchen and came back with an envelope. This is a copy of the lease for the apartment on Maple Street. Standard terms, $1,700 a month. Move-in costs total $5,100. David took the envelope. But, I continued, if you and Emma can show me over the next 6 months that you're serious about these changes, about building a life based on your own values, not your parents' approval, then we'll revisit the family discount. Hope flickered in his eyes. Really? Really. But you have to earn it. Both of you. He nodded firmly. We will, I promise. He paused at the door before leaving. Mrs. Harrison, thank you. For the test. For showing us who my parents really are. Emma needed to see it. I needed to see it. You're welcome, I replied. Now go be better than them. 6 months later, Emma and David sat at my kitchen table for Sunday dinner. It had become a tradition. Every Sunday, they came over. Emma helped me cook. David set the table. We ate together, talked, laughed. No fancy restaurants, no expensive wine. Just homemade food and real conversation. My mother asked about you again, David said, passing the salad bowl. Oh, I replied. She wants to apologize, in person. She's been asking for months. And what did you tell her? That it's not up to me. It's up to you. When and if you're ready. I nodded approvingly. Good answer. Emma squeezed my hand. She sent another gift basket last week, expensive stuff from that gourmet shop downtown. What did you do with it? Donated it to the food bank, Emma said. Just like the other 5. We told her to stop, but she keeps trying. She's trying to buy forgiveness, I said. Same way she tries to buy everything else. Are you ever going to talk to her? David asked. I thought about it. Maybe. Someday. If she ever shows me that she's actually changed. Not just that she's sorry she got caught. That's fair, David agreed. The truth was, Patricia and Richard had tried everything. Flowers, gifts, cards, messages through David, even a handwritten letter that arrived 2 weeks after the infamous lunch. In it, Patricia claimed she'd been having a bad day, that she hadn't meant any harm, that everything had been a misunderstanding, that she hoped we could move forward as family. I never responded, because it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was exactly what she meant, and the only thing she regretted was that I wasn't actually poor. Michelle had been different. She'd sent a single text message 3 weeks after the lunch. Michelle, I was a bitch. You were right about everything. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be less like them. It's hard. I'd responded, keep trying. It's worth it. We'd texted a few times since. Brief conversations, nothing deep, but it was something. "How are the boundaries working?" I asked David. "Good," he said. "Hard, but good. My parents still try to control things with money, but we're saying no more often than we used to." "They offered to buy us a new car last week," Emma added. "Said our old one was embarrassing." "What did you say?" "That our old car runs fine and we don't need their help," Emma said proudly. "My mom didn't talk to me for 3 days afterward." "Good," I said. "That means you're doing it right." After dinner, as David was washing dishes and Emma was drying, Emma turned to me. "Mom, I have something to tell you." I looked up. Her face was glowing. "I'm pregnant." I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful." We hugged. David came over and joined us. Grinning. "We're not telling David's parents yet," Emma said. "We wanted you to be the first to know." "Thank you," I whispered. "And Mom," Emma added, "we want you very involved, not as a babysitter we take advantage of, but as a grandma who's loved and respected and appreciated." "I'd like that," I said. David cleared his throat. "We also wanted to ask you something. We're looking at houses, small ones, nothing fancy, and we were wondering if you'd co-sign the mortgage, not for the money. We can qualify on our own. But because we want you officially a part of this, legally tied to our family's next step." I looked at both of them, these two young people who had learned something important, who were choosing to build a different kind of life than the one they'd been raised to expect. "I'd be honored," I said. A year after the lunch, Patricia finally showed up at my door. No warning, no call ahead, just knocked on my door on a random Tuesday afternoon. I opened it to find her standing on my porch. She looked different, older, tired, less polished than before. "Susan," she said, "please, just give me 5 minutes." I considered closing the door. Instead, I said, 5 minutes, on the porch." We sat on my porch swing, the same swing I'd sat on with my late husband 40 years ago. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "I was wrong," she finally said. "About everything. The way I treated you, the things I said, the assumptions I made." "Yes," I agreed. "You were." "I've been thinking about that lunch for a year," she continued, replaying it, hearing my own words, seeing your face, and I'm ashamed. "Good," I said. "You should be." She flinched, but didn't argue. "I grew up poor," she said quietly. "Really poor. My father was a drunk. My mother cleaned houses. We never had enough. I wore thrift store clothes and got made fun of at school. I was that kid everyone looked down on." She twisted her hands in her lap. "When I finally made money, when Richard and I built our business and our life, I swore I'd never be that poor girl again. I'd never be looked down on again." She looked at me, but somewhere along the way, I became the person doing the looking down. I became the person who judged others the way I'd been judged, and I didn't even see it. "Until I exposed you," I said. "Until you exposed me," she agreed. "I've been trying to figure out how to apologize, what to say, how to make it right." "You can't," I said simply. "You can't make it right. What's done is done." "I know," she said. "But I can try to be different going forward. I can try to change." "Can you?" I asked. "Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear?" She was quiet for a moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "I hope I can. But I've been this way for so long, I don't know if I know how to be different." For the first time, I felt something besides anger toward her. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe understanding. "Patricia, you spent your whole life building walls to protect yourself from ever being poor again. But those walls became a prison. They cut you off from seeing people as people, from connecting with anyone who wasn't inside your protected fortress." She nodded slowly, tears forming. "That lunch," I continued, When you thought I was poor, you saw me as everything you used to be, everything you were terrified of becoming again. So you pushed me down to make yourself feel higher, safer. Yes, she whispered. That's not strength, I said. That's fear. She was crying now, really crying. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Not because you turned out to have money, but because I treated another human being like they were worthless. Because I did to you what people did to me when I was young. And I knew how much it hurt, and I did it anyway. I let her cry. Didn't comfort her, just let her feel it. Finally, she wiped her eyes. Can you ever forgive me? I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, in time, if you show me real change, not just words, actions. What kind of actions? Treat people with respect regardless of what they wear or where they live. Stop measuring worth by bank accounts. Apologize to your son for controlling him with money. Build a real relationship with Emma based on love, not status. I paused. And most importantly, deal with your own trauma. Go to therapy. Figure out why you became the person who hurt you when you were young. She nodded. I can do that. I will do that. Then maybe, I said, maybe we can find our way to some kind of peace. She stood to leave. Susan, Emma told me she's pregnant. I know. I want to be part of that baby's life. I want to be a grandmother. But I understand if you don't want me around. I looked at her. That's not my decision. It's Emma and David's. But I'll tell you this. If you're going to be in that child's life, you'd better be the grandmother that child deserves, not the woman who judges people by their clothes. I'll try, she promised. I'll really try. After she left, I sat on my porch swing for a long time. Thinking, processing, feeling. I didn't fully forgive her that day. Forgiveness takes time. But I opened the door. Just a crack. Because I realized something. People like Patricia weren't evil. They were broken, damaged by their own trauma, building walls that eventually imprisoned them. And maybe, just maybe, they could change. If they chose to. If they did the work. If they faced their own demons instead of projecting them onto others. 2 years after the lunch, I held my grandson for the first time. Emma and David named him Henry. Henry James Harrison Westfield. Patricia was there at the hospital. She'd been different over those 2 years. Quieter. Less flashy. She'd started volunteering at a homeless shelter, working with women who were exactly who she used to be. She'd been in therapy. She'd apologized to David for years of control. She'd built a tentative, careful relationship with Emma, and when she held baby Henry for the first time, she cried. He's perfect, she whispered. He is, I agreed. She looked at me over the baby's head. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For that lunch, for the test, for showing me who I'd become. I nodded. You're welcome. It wasn't perfect. Patricia still slipped sometimes, still made comments about money or status, but she caught herself now, apologized, tried to do better. Richard was harder to reach. He still measured people by their net worth, but he was polite to me now, distant but polite. Michelle had changed the most. She'd left her MBA program, traveled for a year, and came back different. She'd started a nonprofit helping low-income families with financial literacy. You inspired me, she told me once. The way you lived, quietly wealthy, helping people without needing credit. I want to be like that. Then be like that, I replied. 5 years after the lunch, Emma and David bought their first house, not with Patricia and Richard's money, with a mortgage they qualified for themselves, a small loan from me at a fair interest rate, and their own savings. It was modest. 3 bedrooms, small yard, east side of the city, my neighborhood, the declining area. We love it here, Emma told me at the housewarming party. It feels real, not pretentious, just real. David agreed. Plus, we're 5 minutes from you. Henry loves seeing his grandma every day. Patricia and Richard came to the housewarming. They were polite, complimentary even. It's a nice starter home, Patricia said carefully. It's our home, Emma corrected. Not a starter. Our home. Patricia nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. It's lovely. I watched them interact, watched Patricia try, watched Richard struggle but attempt civility, watched Michelle play with Henry and laugh with genuine joy. They weren't perfect, but they were trying. And sometimes, trying is enough. The lesson in all of this? Money doesn't define worth. Clothes don't reveal character. Addresses don't determine value. How you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you, that's who you really are. And tests, uncomfortable as they are, reveal truth. I've never regretted that lunch, not for a single moment. It showed me who Patricia and Richard were. It showed Emma who she was marrying into. It showed David who he wanted to become. And it reminded me who I was, someone who didn't need to prove anything. Someone who built wealth quietly and used it wisely. Someone who valued dignity over designer labels. I still live in my modest house. Still drive my old car, though I did finally replace it when the mechanic said it was genuinely unsafe. I still shop at discount stores. Still clip coupons. Still live below my means. Not because I have to, because I choose to. Because I learned something long ago that Patricia is just learning now. True wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your peace of mind. It's in your authentic relationships. It's in being able to look in the mirror and respect the person looking back. I have that. And no amount of expensive wine or designer clothes or luxury restaurants can buy it. Patricia offered me $500 a month to disappear. But I already had something she'll spend the rest of her life searching for. Dignity, self-respect, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your worth isn't for sale. And that, my friends, is truly priceless. So, did you like the story? I still see Emma and David every Sunday. Henry is learning to read now. He's 5 years old and brilliant and kind. Patricia and Richard are in his life. They're trying. Some days are better than others. Michelle is engaged to a teacher, someone Patricia would have once thought wasn't good enough. But she's learning to see beyond the bank account. And me? I'm exactly where I want to be. In my paid-off house in my declining neighborhood, surrounded by people I love, living authentically. No masks, no pretenses, no apologies. Just me. Just Susan Harrison. The woman who dressed poor to expose the truth. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because some lessons are worth teaching, even if the method is uncomfortable, even if it breaks something that needed breaking, even if it forces everyone to look at truths they'd rather avoid. That lunch changed everything. It changed Emma's perspective, David's courage, Patricia's awareness, Michelle's path, and it reminded me of something I already knew. You can't buy class, decency, or the ability to treat people with basic human respect. Those things are earned through choices we make every single day, when we meet someone new, when we judge based on appearance, when we measure worth in dollars, when we decide who deserves our respect. Choose wisely, because someone might be testing you, and you might fail, just like Patricia did, just like Richard did, just like Michelle did. But also remember, failing the test isn't the end, it's the beginning of awareness, of growth, of change. If you choose it, Patricia chose it, eventually. And now, 5 years later, she's building something she never had before, real relationships based on humanity, not hierarchy. It's never too late to change, but it starts with seeing the truth. Even when the truth is uncomfortable, even when the truth hurts, even when the truth is delivered by a woman in old clothes carrying a worn canvas bag. Remember that. The next time you meet someone who doesn't look successful, who drives an old car, who lives in the wrong neighborhood, who wears discount store clothes, remember that you might be taking a test, and the person grading it might be worth more than you'll ever know. Which city are you listening from? Let me know in the comments. If this story resonated with you, send a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. I'm looking forward to hearing what you thought. See you in the next one. With love and respect.